published writer, which is fantastic. I didn't know that about him, and I've known him for a couple of years. He's been a featured storyteller at the Coolidge Corner Theater, Club Oberon, Improv Boston, and other action-packed venues across New England. He takes his audience, and this is one of my favorites, on story trips of wit through childhood and the follies of everyday slog. In June, he'll be teaching the Introduction to Storytelling. And if you are interested and want to hear more, talk to him after the show or visit his own personal website, BrendynSchneider.com. So he's about to tell us a story about being in the dentist when he's 8 with his dad. The story is called Monuments. So the idea is he's in the dentist, or at the dentist with his dad, or is he? Brendyn, come to the stage.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys tonight? Good? Okay. So we're close enough to Father's Day. I'm going to tell a story tonight. I'm going to dedicate it to my dad, Eddie. So when you're a storyteller, people ask you a lot where you get your ideas from. And the answer to that is everywhere. But I've been thinking about a question I get sometimes: when did you decide to be a storyteller? And that happened when I was 8, in the dentist office. When you're 8 years old, the waiting room of the dentist office is a dark, dark place. People wonder what Milton's inspiration was when he wrote Paradise Lost. Easy, he was sitting in the waiting room of a dentist office. I always had to go on a Saturday morning at like 8. So no Super Friends, no Snorks, no giant bowl of Cocoa Puffs, no Smurfs. All the good shit that made Saturday morning awesome was replaced by acres of Highlights magazine. Right? Did you ever see Highlights anywhere else? Only in the dentist office. You can go to magazine racks, you go to the supermarket, all this. You can't get a subscription, you gotta go to your dentist. Pamphlets about really boring teeth. You ever pick up one of those pamphlets? It's boring. And this really safe music leaking out of a speaker somewhere. Fly away to the I hated the dentist office. And my dentist office had these really claustrophobic maroon walls and this painting of a creepy, bald and bearded man squatting on a toadstool. He had these really lazy eyes that followed me no matter where I was in the room. Interior design probably isn't a requirement at dentist school, but what the hell was that painting doing there? Pediatrician dentist office. I still want to grab the dentist and say, "You got children coming in here, pal." I mean, why not put up a picture of Popeye or a monkey brushing his teeth, something that would get you into wanting to be in the dentist office. Instead, we get this exhausted-looking hobbit with a real staring problem. This one visit, I remember being so freaked out. It was in a giant public building, right? So I ran down the hall, past all the other offices, ran into the dentist office, grabbed a magazine at random, jumped into my seat, all to avoid eye contact with Frodo the whole time. But I felt his eyes on the side of my head because my skin got real prickly right here. Now, the magazine I picked up was an issue of Time. I picked it up, 8 subscription cards flew out, and there was a 2-page spread of Mount Rushmore in front of me. Ah, Mount Rushmore. Now we're talking. Because Mount Rushmore, for me, as a kid, had impossible cool, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or the Egyptian pyramids. And that kind of stuff somehow existed outside of the conventional stuff that you learn when you're a kid, right? You know, I mean, you learn about social studies, you learn about history, you learn about math, but then you learn about the pyramids. No one really knows how the pyramids were built. And I totally put Mount Rushmore in that category, and I found myself thinking, how could there be a mountain of such perfectly carved faces? I mean, it's nothing like that in my town. Did France like the Statue of Liberty? Because the Statue of Liberty arrived in pieces, right? I knew that much. All right, did we get the heads from France? Each head? Maybe the villains from Superman 2 came along and heat visioned them into the mountain. I had no idea. But I was fascinated. Now, my dad was sitting right next to me. My dad was the only good thing about going to the dentist office. I'd see him for a few times each week, but I mean, he was on the Long Island Railroad, you know, every day going into Manhattan, and I was going to school, and so with school and with chores and work and blah, 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 it was never really enough time to hang with him. So Saturday was our day, and he'd take me to the dentist. He hated the dentist just as much as me, but he would crack jokes about the other people in the waiting room. Lady over there, she looks like a pile of eggs, doesn't she? She does, doesn't she? Pile of eggs. That guy over there, he looks like dog too, doesn't he? And he made the time in purgatory, he made the time in purgatory so much more bearable. I also learned at an early age that though my father is not an expert on everything, he would have you believe that he is. Hey, Dad, how'd they come up with Mount Rushmore? You mean the mountain with the faces? I remember holding up the magazine I showed him. And he looked at the magazine for a couple of seconds, and then he lit a cigarette. Now remember, this is the 80s, before all the cigarette laws and bans and stuff we have nowadays. My dad looked at the magazine and said, "There's a guy by the name of John Rushmore." Who? John Rushmore. It was just one guy? One guy. Alright, so how do you get out there? Well, John used to hitchhike. Yeah, crisscrossed America, you know, odd jobs here and there, get around mainly by hitchhiking. Well, one day he gets out of a cab and he looks up at a mountain range and he gets inspired. And he says to himself, before I leave this spot, I'm going to dedicate that mountain to my 4 favorite people in history. The 4 presidents. The 4 presidents, because in hindsight I realized my dad couldn't remember their names on the spot. Wow, Dad, I had no idea. That's right. So how long did it take him? I don't know, 6 weeks? 6 weeks? That's it? That's it. Wow, John Rushmore. Wait, Dad, all right. If it was just one guy, how did he shape the heads? He couldn't have just done it with his hands. Oh no! John always carried a piece of sandpaper in his back pocket. Years later, I got around to doing a little bit of research. And after uncovering a few key facts about the monument, I called my dad. You know, Dad, I didn't notice any John Rushmore in the literature. No, of course not. Yeah, it was named after a Charles Rushmore. He was a lawyer from New York. Yeah, that's right, Charlie. You know, his friends called him Chuck. Dad, you said it was John Rushmore. You never mentioned any Chuck. Look, John was a silent partner. He didn't want to be known. What? Johnny was a loan shark. He kept the garment district alive for years. I thought you said he was a hitchhiker. He was. Dad, how can he be a loan shark and a hitchhiker? He got beat up. He lost it all. What do you want from Johnny? So what? He started fresh? He started fresh. He catched on. He had to. Why didn't you tell me about any of this before? What, the dentist office? Come on, you were too young. I couldn't get in any with you. As I hung up the phone, it occurred to me. A magician never gives up his tricks. A storyteller never gives up his stories. You see, I think I get it. I think stories are mental monuments. And they stand for impossible cool, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, or Mount Rushmore, or an afternoon with your dad. I mean, they might weave into themselves with the changing years, but the true storyteller, the true teller, never gives them up. Now, some might say that all my dad did was lie to his 8-year-old boy, that he was just as bored of the maroon walls and the smoking hobbit on the toadstool. But I know there was something more. And as a final request for you guys, because you guys have been so great, we're filming this tonight. So what would be awesome is, in honor of Father's Day and my dad, can everyone say on the count of 3, Happy Father's Day, Eddie? You guys all cool with that? Yeah, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Happy Father's Day, Eddie! Thanks very much, folks. Have a great night.